Guys, thank you for being here, as I always say, but truly on it's a dark week because you can see the increasing momentum of political violence in America. Jim, I wonder if you can give me a thought on what's going on.
Well, I don't believe in violence in any way. So, I think this was overboard. We should have just argued with the guy and continue to press our point. I don't believe in anything he had to say. Um, and yes, he was, as you just mentioned, very important in the world of politics. He, Many people credit him with putting Trump over the top because he got younger votes that he didn't get before. Um, on the other hand, you know, what I don't know yet, and I'd like love to hear Michael's thoughts and your thoughts on this, Mark, is I don't know yet, because I did not follow him very closely, is whether or not all these tributes about him wanting to listen and not react with violence and debate in a civil manner, if that's correct. If it's correct, I wholeheartedly endorse it. If it isn't, then I'd like to hear about that because I don't know him as that. But that, now that he's been shot, everybody's come out, of course, and says that he was a good example of how to debate. And I don't know if that's true or not.
I'll turn over to Michael in a second. I'll just share what I know. He had a regular thing that he was doing, actually, I think doing it at the time that he was killed. And it
Yes.
was called Prove Me Wrong. And so he has people, they talk to them before they actually take the microphone. They have them, pre-selected, if you will, with questions, but they're legitimate, provocative questions. And then Kirk responds to them. The one thing I would say is when you watch them, it's oftentimes not quite the legitimate back and forth that you would hope for. There's a little, I feel, kind of a professional wrestling aspect to it where Kirk will essentially be able to steamroll the questioner, but that might be a little unfair. I haven't seen all of these different meetings. Certainly going to these campuses and taking these sorts of questions is something that distinguished him from many other high profile political figures. Michael, you might have actually seen some of this because I know you're out there on campuses and have covered them through the years and these Charlie Kirk type events. Can you speak to this?
Yeah, I mean, I've been to two of his events. They weren't formally sort of ID'd as that, as a prove me wrong events. They were just Charlie Kirk talking to people, and yeah, there's a sort of a mic drop attitude that he would take, like, yeah, try and tell me that this isn't right, and then he's got his people boosting him up, and he doesn't do that, but that's the kind of feel I get. I should also, just to correct the record, Tyler was not a registered Republican, according to what I've seen. One of your listeners said that earlier. I've seen that he's been registered as a nonpartisan voter, and he came from a Republican family, which is hard not to do in Utah, generally speaking. But just for clarity on that issue, I've only read today and learned from reporters reporting that he was a registered nonpartisan.
Albert, play for us, if you would, the kid who asks the question, and as he was asking the question, in response, Kirk was murdered. Here, sadly, of course, he's been folded into this whole narrative. I say sadly because, he really was there, it would appear, just to ask this question and to participate like everybody else who was there. Do you have that, Albert, here? He posted this on social media.
It's a tragedy, and it's hard to grapple with. And I'm part of a community that's struggling to grapple with it right now. And people have obviously pointed to the irony that the point that I was trying to make is how peaceful the left was right before he got shot. And that only makes sense if we stay peaceful. And as much as I disagree with Charlie Kirk, I'm on the record for how much I disagree with Charlie Kirk, but man, dude, he is still a human being. Have we forgotten that?
So, I mean, you could see how emotional he was. I'm struck by this moment because I don't know if it's a culmination or if it's the beginning of a period of what appears to be a political violence that's being animated in large measure
It's
from.
not. It's not even the culmination. This is who we are, Mark. This is these are our politics. Our politics are politics of violence. They have been for a very long time. Our policing is. We had John Yoo writing torture memos in the Bush White House. The left is not the violent side. They are not the ones that are pushing for, for gun laws that allowed half the people at Utah Valley University to be having open carry. That's a misnomer. It didn't start with Charlie Kirk's death. Hopefully it will end. But Gabby Giffords was shot. It didn't end there. Kids are shot in schools, and that's not political necessarily. Those are usually the acts of madmen and young sort of radicalized people who get radicalized online. This is somebody who sowed a lot of hate, who otherized so many people, and now the right is trying to project onto the left everything that they have stood for on issues of violence. And it's going to work unless the left finds a way to get into it. There is not, I heard somebody saying the other night that David Axelrod was quoting Aeschylus on TV that night, and Republicans on TV were calling for revenge. Republicans in the well of the House were calling for revenge. You cannot bring poetry. This person, I think it was Corbin Trent, said you cannot bring poetry to a gunfight, and that's where we are. This is who we are. There's nothing sort of new about what happened to Charlie Kirk. It just happened to him, and it's a tragedy and it's awful. But his rhetoric was while he was alive was terrible, and the fact that we're now turning him into a martyr is disgusting. In a way, it's a terrible tragedy. It's awful for people to have seen that guy who we were just listening to, who asked him a question, who came to that event earnestly wanting to be a part of that. It's exciting when a national figure comes to your local campus in Orem, Utah. I'm certain, especially when there are a lot of like-minded people, at least in terms of conservatism. But this isn't new. This is who we are.
There have been, you mentioned I'll get to the white nationalism in a second, but you mentioned the well of the House, and I wanted to play, they were, right after this all went down, they were trying to get together a minute of silent prayer. And kind of to your point, in a way, the discourse couldn't even halt. The shouting back and forth couldn't even halt. The one-upsmanship associated with this couldn't stop for even 1 minute. Albert, play that stuff from the House, the Mike Johnson attempt to have a moment of prayer in the House chamber. Here you go.
Shh. The chair would ask that all members present in the chamber and those in the gallery please rise for a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Colorado rise?
This is Lauren Boebert.
Shh. Let's wait a minute. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. Shh. The House will be in order.
I just think that's instructive because, this speaks to the political discourse, Jim. This, I think it appropriate that it ends of the House will be in order. This is, now the House admittedly is a place where there are a lot of cross currents, but, they can't even shut up for 60 seconds to do this moment of silence. I don't know that the moment of silence is appropriate anyway. You didn't do it for the Minnesota Democrat who was shot and killed in her home with her husband, et cetera. But nonetheless, they attempted it and they couldn't get it. They couldn't get it off the launch pad.
Yeah, and I think for the most part, the problem the Democrats have is they still play by the rules. And I don't want them to change that. I don't want them to stop playing by the rules. But because they do, it allows the Republicans a week's worth of grace to spew hate, and it's not challenged. because Democrats don't want to say anything bad about Charlie Kirk because he was killed in plain view. And I think that's right. That's the right thing to do. But it sets them back because Republicans showed no restraint whatsoever. Trump, the day of, was blaming leftists, and he has no idea if it was leftists. And in fact, it may not have been, as Michael points out. So, you know, it puts, I don't know what to do about that. I mean, I don't want everybody to jump in and have it be a free for all. Should we play hardball? Yes, Gavin Newsom's playing hardball, but he's playing hardball in the court of public opinion. He's not advocating violence or revenge or those type of things.
Well, he had
Um,
Charlie Kirk on his podcast.
Yeah,
Gavin Newsom took a lot of
they
heat
had
for
a
that.
they had a civil debate. You know, I wasn't pleased that he had him and Steve Bannon as his first two guests. I don't think that was great, but at least at least he is willing to listen and debate. The Republicans have gone beyond debate. They are just name calling and calling for revenge, and that's not right.
You know, Michael, you point to where we are. This is who we are. And I think that that's a kind of instructive comment because we're a society awash in guns and awash in more and more incendiary rhetoric. And just
Not
look
to
at
mention,
the
we changed the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. We have road rage videos that we could watch until, if we wanted to, now we could watch until 2027 on YouTube. We have police. We prevent crime through violence. I mean, we are a violent country, and any denial of that is absurd. And it's not coming. The majority of it is not at least coming from the left. It's this rhetoric on guns, the rhetoric on torture, the rhetoric on extreme policing. That's not coming from the left, but the right does a very good job on saying and projecting that the left is soft on crime, that the left, is doing things like this before they even do it. Right? What happens? The story starts and people start fading away. We know what news cycles are like, right? Once they catch the guy, yeah, we'll learn a little bit more about him later, but this story will fade away to some degree. And all the information that people got from people like Donald Trump and others saying this was some left-wing radical who was out there. It might be an anti-fascist, that there seem to have been anti-fascist messages, but I don't know when anti-fascist became radical in this country. And to that degree, that's what we're looking at here. So to me, it's status quo. And this time, sadly, the bullet hit, but it's no different than it was the day before Charlie Kirk was killed.
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Just
Jim.
as further evidence of what I was saying before is that let's look at the extremes on both sides. Okay, let's take AOC. Let's take Bernie Sanders. Have you ever heard them call for violence? Have you heard them call for revenge? No, they don't do that. The Republicans on the other side do, and that is the problem. You can't. This is a one-sided fight. You can't believe that that they're equal. And it's
But what
we
makes
should
this
not
one,
believe.
Jim,
It's not.
if I can add to what you're saying, Jim, that they control the message machine too, which is important because what they can do is what I'm saying is project it onto the other side. We've all had things in interpersonal relationships and wherever we were projecting something onto you that they are doing. We probably all have done it at some point in our lives. The Republican Party and Bloc, which is interesting because that's another political story today, and Bloc, the Republican Party, has been successful in projecting whatever they want onto the Democrats. They're soft on crime. All their number one issue is transgender. Everything that really isn't true. It's the Republicans who are worried about transgender, and so it's absolutely a successful potion that they've concocted for political power.
The days ahead will tell us more about this, but the alt-right movement, there are degrees of alt-rightness, and the Nick Fuenteses of the world, they also find themselves at odds with someone like Charlie Kirk. I mean, this goes back just a handful of years, but there's sort of the suggestion that the Charlie Kirks of the world versus the Nick Fuenteses of the world are on opposing sides because Charlie Kirk is almost too mainstream for somebody who's like Nick Fuentes. So again, this not to get too much in the weeds, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there are gradations even on the alt-right, but all of them are a day's drive from, as what Jim says, the high-profile Democrats who you might consider the lefties, those like AOC or Bernie Sanders. But Michael, you're so right. I mean, it feels like all the right wing and Republican punches land, and Democrats are still finding a good way to message. And
Well, because the Republicans have Fox News, and this morning, I think it was this morning, Trump appears on Fox News and repeats the same thing about the leftists. And they just let him go on unfiltered. And the Democrats don't have that voice anymore. CNN has gone more toward the middle, more toward the right than they ever have been before. And MSNBC just fired Matt Dowd for saying something that was true.
But also something was like it's so tepid as a remark, when it comes to violence. Here is Trump a little bit on his Fox and Friends appearance, talking about the right. You see him there. It was odd too. They arrested this guy at 10 o'clock last night, Utah time, and they held the announcement until Donald Trump could make the announcement on Fox News Channel this morning on their morning show.
And they didn't even catch him, right? I mean, the guy surrendered, right?
Exactly.
So
that was the point I was making in hour one. I mean, they're peacocking like it was some great investigative triumph.
Right.
If the dad doesn't call and the clergyman doesn't call, we don't have him.
Right.
But
does the
pivoting,
clergyman get the $10,000 or whatever the reward is, by the way?
That's a very good question.
It's a tithe.
That's something else we'll know in the
not
days
a
ahead.
reward. It's a tithe. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, let me just quickly segue, just while I have you guys, to the situation with the Trump announcement wanting National Guard troops to go to Memphis. Obviously Chicago's on the docket, and they are in Washington. Give me a thought on this. Is this stuff, it seems like a bigger reach, but he did do it in L.A., and so on some level, I'm thinking he can do it elsewhere. And there, at least in Tennessee, there's a Republican governor.
And it doesn't appear as though there's much objection to it in Tennessee,
Right.
from either the mayor or who I think the mayor is a Democrat, but I don't
Mayor's
think he's
a Democrat,
objecting.
right? Exactly.
He's not objecting, and certainly the Republican is not objecting. So I don't think they have as much of a problem with it there as they do in California or other places where the governor has to cooperate.
And meantime, to push through Donald Trump appointees and nominations, the Senate is doing something which is called the nuclear option, Michael. I wonder if you could explain it and how the Democrats flirted with it but stayed away from it, and how the Republicans are embracing it and look like they're going to go through with it.
Well, yeah. And so the thing about I'll talk to that first, and then I've got to say one thing on Memphis. But that's what you get with majorities. That's why on election night, when you find out you have a 6-seat majority in the Senate, it's huge, because when you don't like the way things are going, you change the rules, and that's what the Senate is doing. And so if you woke up this morning worried that we didn't have an ambassador in Greece, well, you're going to have Kimberly Guilfoyle soon, so don't worry. These are the things they do. They say that they're trying to negotiate with the Democrats. In fact, they may be. But those negotiations didn't get anywhere on this. And when you have that kind of a majority, it means that you can go right into it, and you can and you can change the rules and then have your vote and get people out there. And so
explain what the rule change would be then, please.
Well, the rule change is that you can bring these nominees up what's called en bloc, which is all at once rather than a little at a time, or one at a time. And when you do that, it's hard then to get the objections, because you'd be objecting to everything. The rules of the Senate state that you have to be able to vote on these one by one. And when you do it en bloc, you vote on everyone at once. And it's a big advantage for the majority to be able to do that.
Now, did you want to say something about Memphis?
Yeah, well, there are some races going on in Memphis, in Tennessee, and it's an easy place. So when you see Trump doing this, what he's doing by not being on the ballot in 2026, actually on the ballot, is he's setting up the Republican Party, his party, to retain control because they are the ones that are tough on crime. So if you go into a state where there's a governor's race in Texas, Bill Lee's the governor, he's term limited out, Marsha Blackburn's going to be running. There's a chance that some, prominent Democrats are going to run either for the Senate against Bill Hagerty, but more likely against Marsha Blackburn in the governor's seat. They're trying to make sure that they have the power and they're able to keep the power in these places by having their candidates say, hey, we're tough on crime. They're soft on crime. If crime is the number one issue, nobody knows if it will be, the Republicans are staking that ground out, and they have the advantage of both houses of Congress and the president to kind of do what he wants when it comes, as we've seen, when it comes to doing this. And they can also use the courts stepping in against Democrats, right? If they're unable to send troops somewhere because a court said it, hey, we wanted to do it, but the Democratic court said that we couldn't do it. I mean, this is the advantage of, they call it the bully pulpit, and this is the bully pulpit part of the job, is that you're able to do these sorts of things.
Crime is a winning issue, and it's been identified as such, as you've just said. But there was interesting, just because you're talking about the politics of the next election, warning sign for Republicans as Trump's approval collapses in a key county. They are looking at Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Michael, you've reported from there, I think, and probably you too.
Yeah, it's a swing county, and I mean, it's swung. It hadn't been a swing county, and Jim, I'm sure, has been there a number of times. It's pretty close to D.C. It's a part of. It's kind of. It's not a Philadelphia suburb, but it's a Philadelphia weekend spot, and it's a place that had swung from, being very blue to kind of purpling up a little bit. And if Trump is failing there, that doesn't bode well for a very big swing state at all. And those are the kinds of things that, may have seen Bob Casey lose his job and Kamala Harris lose the state in the 2024 election.
Yeah, they call it one of the nation's top bellwethers, and they say in new polling it is Donald Trump approval rating that's in free fall. And again, that's the description. It's actually 53% among likely voters. That's a disapproval number of 53%. So I don't know if I'd call it free fall, but maybe that's sufficient.
Independents are losing their interest in Mr. Trump, and I think that is because of these crazy things he's been doing. And while it shores up his base, he continues to have that. I guess it's 45% now of people who will follow him no matter what he does. But the independents are spooked by the crazy things that he does, and the fact that he's taking on. Go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Jim. To what Jim's saying, though, I'm bolstering what he's saying. To that end, the independents are the ones that are most interested in issues like crime. In many cases, that's a swing issue for a swing voter.
I guess I live in a bubble, Mark, because I don't live in LA anymore. And even when I did live in LA, the worst thing that there was a homeless encampment across the street from my too expensive apartment. But other than that, I didn't feel in danger at all. I walked my dog in the middle of the night. I did all those things. And here in San Diego, where I live now, I don't see any crime. So I really can't speak to the fear that you say is palpable. I'm not sure it's there among the majority of Americans. They're going to make it seem like it is, and they're going to terrorize people with that. But in reality, is crime the big issue, or is the fact that my meat costs $10 a pound going to be the reality? I still think it's the economy, and that's what it's going to be.
But if they tell you that, and this goes to what we've been saying all day, Jim, exactly what you just said is, if the Republicans are telling you that crime's an issue, there are enough voters that are going to say crime is an issue. It goes to the last interaction Charlie Kirk had, frankly. If we want to put a button on this thing, they were talking about, are there how many mass shooters have been transgender, right? And he said too many or something like that. Charlie Kirk said too many. The point is, they're good at telling you there's a problem when the problem doesn't exist, because that scares voters and that makes people think that there is a problem. That's what creates wedge issues. And crime isn't quite a wedge issue, but it's certainly something, like you said, Jim, that people are looking at and hearing and saying, oh, it must be bad all over the country. It's not bad in my neighborhood, but it must be bad out there. And these guys are the ones that are doing the most about it. It's a very...
And I think even in places like San Francisco, which had got such bad publicity for what was going on there, that's improved as well. From what I'm told.
Unless you're talking about their football team.
Well, yeah, well, that's because they don't have a good quarterback. But I keep
Well, they
telling Mark
do have a good
that
quarterback.
They
He's-
don't.
he's
The
just
quarterbacks. Yeah, you just heard. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
can we cut Jim's mic?
Yeah. Well, we're out of time. I was going to try to shoehorn.
not that
in
our
on
Bears are doing any better, but
Well,
Well, they looked pretty good the
if
other
they
night.
could only play 3/4 of football, they would be doing
that's
well.
right. That'd be great.
I have to wrap up, gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. There's a lot. Look, there's a lot going on. Obviously, the lion's share of what we talked about was the Charlie Kirk stuff, but there is plenty to leave on the back burner for next week, and I look forward to that. Michael, thank you. Jim, thank you. I look forward to our next conversation and appreciate you being here.
Bye, guys.
Okay, see you guys. Michael Shure and Jim Avila, everyone.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.